Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining in on time. We are just on top of the hour. We have about 105 people who have registered. So we're just kind of waiting for a few more people to join in. Let's just wait for 1 minute before we can get started. While we wait, if I can ask all of you to rename yourself and add the company that you represent in your name, that will be really great. Thanks, Sridhar. Thanks for doing that already. I'm going to rename myself as well. So maybe a quick show of hands on, or maybe you can either put an entry in the chat, or you can actually use the reactions to kind of show of hands. How many of you actually attended the first session that we did a couple of days back? Nice. Thank you. Thanks, Sridhar. Thanks, Piyush. Thanks for your confirmation. How about the others? I thought I saw Abhay on the call as well.
Abhay is still trying to connect. He's trying to connect.
Okay. Hi, Rajneesh. Thanks for confirmation. Thanks, Rajinder, for your confirmation as well. If I can request, if you can just rename yourself and add the company name to the end of your name so that everyone knows which company you represent. Thanks, Sanjay. Okay, so we are 3 minutes on top of the hour. I think we should respect the time of people who join on time. So let's get started. Thanks everyone for joining in. This is the second session in a 5-part series that we are running around Industry 4.0. The first one, as I said, we had a couple of days back. A lot of you attended that session as well. We had a panel. We had Malaki kind of set the context, and then we had a panel discussion of very eminent panelists who talked about all the different perspectives when it comes to Industry 4.0. So now that we have a very broad picture, the idea is the rest of the 4 sessions are going to be very focused on a particular aspect of business that we are going to focus on, and how Industry 4.0 impacts that particular part of your business. So that at the end, maybe we can all put it back together and see the kind of impact that some of these technologies can have on your overall business. Again, it is my pleasure and privilege to kind of welcome Malaki Martin, Global Director, Center of Excellence at SAP, to kind of take us through the topic on hand today, which is intelligent assets, and how can we use intelligent assets to kind of drive business and improve productivity from that point of view. So Malaki has over 30 years of experience. He's worked in various industry verticals. He's done multiple implementations in terms of in industries like, for example, utilities, transport, energy, retail, telecom, banking, finance, fintech. He has an exceptional track record and a diverse range of skills in digital thought leadership, specifically Industry 4.0, and even more specifically around intelligent asset management. With that, I'd like to hand it over to Malaki. If you can just take us through the first 45-50 minutes or so in terms of your content, and then we will have enough time for doing Q&A and also do a little bit of a networking session as we go along. With that, over to you, Malaki.
Thank you, Mukesh, and hello everyone. Welcome back to those who joined us earlier in the week, and thank you everyone for taking the time today to hear a little bit more about some of the specifics around intelligent assets in the context of Industry 4.0. As Mukesh said, I'm Malaki Martin. I'm based in Singapore, so good afternoon from Singapore, and I look after anything and everything that touches Industry 4.0, and in particular, anything that touches intelligent asset service management across SAP for the Global Center of Excellence within the digital supply chain team at SAP. So I'm going to use slides primarily, but there will be a few videos interspersed just to give you a wake-up call, as it were, so that you're not necessarily falling asleep from my monotonous tone. But it also hopefully will give you a little bit of an insight into some of the capabilities we have at SAP. And I'm going to try and broad brush the topic as well. There'll be a short introduction to Industry 4, but then I will go into a lot more detail in terms of our intelligent asset management portfolio and how that touches at the core within your businesses, but also how that touches the people who are involved in that process. So hoping you enjoy it and looking forward later for some questions. Of course, there'll be a Q&A session later, and we'll get a chance to discuss your queries and hopefully give you answers. So I'm going to turn off my video while I'm presenting because I've been told that it burns a lot less carbon than showing a video. So I'll stop my video now. I'll share my screen, and hopefully we'll be able to go on a great journey together during this session. So just bear with me. Just a quick double check. You can all see my screen?
Yes, Malik.
Thank you very much, Mukesh. So we opened up on Tuesday talking about Industry 4 transformation and why we at SAP believe it's important that we start now. And we touched on what are 4 key pillars for us, one of which is intelligent assets. And you'll learn throughout this deck as to exactly where that sits within SAP's overall Industry 4.0 journey. Now, I like to start all of my presentations with a quotation. I used this one on Tuesday, but again, I'll use it because it is really important in the context of the disruptions we've experienced in the last couple of years. Warren Buffett, back in 2009, as part of the great financial recession, said, "Only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked." And I think we've all been guilty in that respect. Over the last few years, it's been very obvious that our systems and our solutions have been challenged by the pandemic and more recently by some of the other global disruptions that are taking place. Now, they're disruptions, yes, but they're not only threats, but as I mentioned earlier this week, they're also opportunities. And what has been particularly clear about the recent disruptions is that they have totally highlighted a lack of visibility across the supply chain. And it has forced many of the organizations we work with and a lot of the organizations we know to come up with new and often uncomfortable methods to attain close to the same goals. And some have struggled and in fact gone to the wall by not being able to achieve their business models of old. So looking at that, I think back to another quotation. This one's less tied to the owner than perhaps people think. And Henry Ford is quoted as saying that if I had asked people what they wanted, they probably would have said they wanted faster horses. And this is obviously back in the day when transport was first invented and automobiles became a norm, as it were. But you know, whether it's actually accredited to Henry Ford or not, it is very relevant in the context of intelligent assets. When we talk about the assets we have today, how do we make them more intelligent? How do we make them quicker, faster, more reliable, and more sustainable? And these are all topics that I hope we'll get a chance to discuss today. In SAP, we focus on the intelligent, sustainable enterprise. We focus on driving every enterprise with our complete portfolio, our business technology platform, underpinning the solutions that we have available. And those solutions are touching any and every industry with which we work. And we work with quite a few, as you know. But effectively, what this is doing is it's allowing us to focus on customer imperatives. We're focusing on those business transformations I mentioned. The fact that the supply chain needs to be much more resilient. And of course, as I call it, the S word, sustainability and delivering sustainability outcomes. Resilient businesses need digitalized operations and supply chains that are built for speed and for flexibility, that are agile, productive, much more connected, not just in terms of the systems, but also in terms of collaborative working, and underpinned by sustainability, being able to actively manage and drive outcomes that are safe for the environment and safe for the people and the communities who are impacted by them. I want to play a short video now as we move into Industry 4 and talk a little bit more about the concept of intelligent assets. What that video clearly points out is that we believe that the time for Industry 4.0 is now. Industry 4.0 is changing everything we have in our enterprises around technology and strategy. And by embracing Industry 4.0, it's moving our customers from transactional data silos to much more integrated data-driven business processes. How are we able to do this? We're able to do this by leveraging the huge amounts, the mountains of real-time digital data that exist in order to help companies we work with to become quicker, smarter, make better database decisions, identify trends, and predict challenges. And we'll talk a lot about the predictive assets capability that we're bringing to the market. And all of this while integrating it into every part of the business and every part of the value chain. We have seen a lot of forces that are driving Industry 4.0 to completion and readiness in our organizations. We've talked about the dramatic impacts and the disruption that has been caused by the pandemic and more recent events around the world. We've talked about the impact on the workforce. There has been a dramatic evolution in terms of the way we work, the way we even attend offices, the way we travel, all that has helped us to have to define new ways of working and new business models to cope with that. And of course, sustainability is a critical success factor throughout all of this. Industry 4.0 is sitting firmly at the center of this. We're seeing the effect on every single part of the business ecosystem. The global business networks, the customers, the employees, and how they experience and use technologies to enable those customer needs, and the intelligent enterprise underpinned by intelligent technologies. Industry 4.0 lets you listen to your assets. Typically, transactional assets work until they break. But with digital data and Industry 4.0, there should be no surprises. By listening to the assets, by receiving the data insights, whether that's through IoT, sensor technology, or edge computing, as we'll discuss in a moment. But in effect, being able to identify something's wrong with the asset, to take advantage of that information and become much more prescriptive and predictive about the way that we work with our enterprise assets. SAP's strategy for Industry 4.0 focuses on all of this. It focuses on 3 core business priorities, all underpinned by one strategy. We center on our customers. What is the customer saying? What's their sentiment telling us? And how do we develop our solutions to meet with that? How do we reinvent the items we're producing, leverage intelligent asset capability to be able to dynamically adapt to production priorities and also deliver customization at scale? And how do we connect the entire company? Whether that's sales or service or logistics, whether that's inside the company or external in terms of collaborative working with our suppliers. It is really important and Industry 4.0 helps to enable all of this. We focus on key areas around intelligent products, intelligent factories, intelligent assets, and empowered people. And today is all about intelligent assets. Intelligent assets allow us to be able to enable the avoiding of downtime of equipment, to be able to increase the overall operational performance of the asset, to be able to shift production and manufacturing and guarantee that sustainability requirement that we're seeing creeping in. Our organizations we work with, by employing intelligent assets, are able to evolve from a reactive asset maintenance strategy into a much more proactive, predictive, and prescriptive data-driven asset performance strategy. And really, intelligent assets acts as one of the 4 key pillars that we've been talking about in Industry 4.0 this week. We are seeing a convergence of maintenance and service outcomes, moving manufacturers and operating processes closer together. We see the full service management life cycle being driven alongside an outcome-based operation within the asset management space. We're seeing the need for every touch point on the asset, all the way from its inception, through commissioning, through the maintenance strategies and analysis, through maintenance planning and execution, all the way through environment, health and safety, and risk management, driving outcomes which in turn are driving a service-driven approach, a servitization, as it were, of the overall service and asset management lifecycle. We're seeing benefits for the asset operators through improved customer service and growth. And we're also seeing benefits for the service providers by being able to deliver competitive advantage and get new business revenue opportunities, whilst also delivering profit from the services that they have available. We are seeing big changes in terms of the vulnerability, asset operations, and the hazards associated with those assets. We're seeing a different approach to the management, the uncertainty of quantification, the prediction, and the reliability of the assets. And we're seeing that this is really changing the way that organizations have to adapt to focus around their asset capability. In addition to this, we're seeing other constraints. We're seeing third-party constraints. We're seeing issues around emergency actions, issues around health and safety. And we're seeing the old paradigms of being able to work on an asset at a location being driven by the ability to work on mobile devices, or as we saw during the pandemic, the emergence of remote assistance. You can see here that I have a picture of someone who's wearing headwear in order to be able to visualize asset information in the field. Our partner, TeamViewer, is providing solutions in order to deliver a remote assistance capability. During the pandemic, those asset-intensive organizations who previously might have asked an industry expert to jump on a plane or a helicopter to come to a location are unable to do that because of the restrictions of the pandemic. And we've seen the emergence of this remote assistance, the ability for someone to be at an asset, which is intelligent, to scan that asset and be able to connect that remote assistant to help them in driving the asset maintenance, the asset inspection, or indeed to identify any anomalies that have occurred in an emergency. So what are we seeing? We're seeing a different outcome, and it's driven by the need to seamlessly extend enterprise asset management and asset performance management so that we can deliver end-to-end processes that close the loop between maintenance strategy and allow us to help to execute and define, implement, and monitor with an optimal asset maintenance strategy. This is covering the full life cycle, from the asset maintenance strategy being defined, through the planning, the rules that go with that maintenance plan, being able to monitor the asset health and maintenance of assets, both physically but also virtually. And we'll talk a bit about that when we discuss digital twins in a moment. And being able to plan asset maintenance and tasks and the resources that are required for that through better order planning, through scheduling, through asset maintenance and inspection, and through service management, through remote mobile solutions. Being able to analyze the assets, to be able to predict and actually only touch assets at the right time in the life cycle in order to avoid potential downtimes. With our asset performance management and our enterprise asset management solution portfolio, we are seeing a full solution portfolio that is covering asset strategy and asset health. In the asset performance management space, it is considering risk and reliability. It's considering the strategies, the health monitoring of the asset, and demand generation from that side. It's looking at maintenance insights and considering the end-to-end value proposition, how to be able to have much better, more prescriptive condition-based maintenance, to be able to be less reactive and to be more predictive in terms of how we're doing the maintenance, how we can manage those inspections and be able to do capital works, but also replacement works that are more effective. In terms of enterprise asset management, of course, all of this needs to hang together. And our EAM solutions allow us to do maintenance, to be able to plan and orchestrate better, to be able to schedule and dispatch the right resource at the right time with the right skills to the right location, and to be able to do that in a way that is enabling the customer service as well, whether that's a business or whether that's a physical customer, being able to deliver a much better outcome. And all of this enabled through mobile capability. And then we're also able to consider extended capabilities that go alongside that. We have seen here that through taking these solutions, embedding intelligent asset management, we're able to drive much better, more focused capabilities. By having better analytics information, we're able to predict, use AI, train models, and be able to actually predict in such a way that we don't always have to dispatch a person to a location. We can only dispatch them and should only dispatch them at the right time so that they are not effectively burning money or burning time when they could be focused and directed at a much more predictive outcome. We have the ability through all of these capabilities to enable not just our traditional SAP enterprise asset management portfolio, but also our full extended asset performance management capability. When we look at that portfolio of intelligent asset management and we blend it with our capabilities around field and asset service management, we are in effect able to increase asset performance, reduce maintenance costs, and deliver much better service excellence. We do this by providing a closed loop on all that goes with that asset performance management, whether that's the strategy, the planning, the execution process. We do it through being able to synchronize maintenance and service processes in such a way that the full enterprise is covered, and we are much more responsive to the customer in terms of customer care and also supply chain resilience. We're able to adopt much more collaborative processes, products as a service, new business models that are helping us to deliver across the full value chain. And Industry 4.0 underpins all of this with asset health, real-time predictive maintenance and service, and helps us to optimize the maintenance and service in such a way with our scheduling and our dispatching of the right resources at the right time. We are able to understand anything and everything that relates to the issue, capture that, leverage that asset intelligence, and feed that back in so that we can drive much better automated and future safe and sustainable enterprise health and safety. The Internet of Things acts as a backbone for our Industry 4.0 capability. I mentioned earlier this week the fact that when we start to look across all of these aspects, we consider the need for smart sensing, being able to identify early in the full life cycle any trends or any information coming from the equipment. Being able to leverage analytics and intelligence to stay on top of that, to be able to turn what is effectively sensor data into real-time data insights, to leverage that big data and drive much better business applications and also much better ease of use and consumption of the information. And all of this close to the asset in the cloud, but also at the edge, which I'll discuss in a moment. We are seeing, when discussing all of these areas, there are different market dynamics at play. Business performance, as I mentioned, is more critical than ever. The need to have much more productive outcomes, the need to adapt to change, and also to be more competitive in the outcome of what we've seen in the last couple of years. This need has never been more apparent. Being able to drive products and services that are individualized for our customers and drive speed to market and trust. And then, as I mentioned, the need to provide product excellence whilst doing that. Innovation is critical in this regard, and sustainability and quality have never been more important. So what we're seeing as enablers to all of this are autonomous systems, edge computing, being able to manage that big data, and also simulation, and simulation through the capability offered by things like digital twins. So what is a digital twin? A digital twin is a physical machine in the real space mapped to a virtual machine in the virtual space. And information connecting the two is able to be leveraged and used as part of this overall intelligent asset journey. And I'd again like to play another short video.
We don't hear anything, Malaki. Are you playing the video?
Yeah, I am.
Can't see any video or audio.
One second, let me try to reshare.
Via the digital twin.
Yeah, now can.
Besides the
We can
advantages,
hear the audio, but we can't see the video though.
machine learning can be used to constantly.
You might have to share your desktop screen rather than the
Can you see
application.
it now?
Not yet.
You can see it not here.
Can't.
Probably.
So you might have to stop sharing and then just share your desktop so that we can actually watch and yeah.
One second. Just let me try something else. Apologies, everybody, for this. Let's see if we share the desktop, maybe. Okay,
Now we
let's.
can see it.
Yeah, but can you hear it? Wait. Let me see if I can make you hear it first. Hold on one second.
Yeah, works fine.
Just keep playing that.
Works okay.
How can we improve the operational readiness of our devices? How can we enhance customer satisfaction and loyalty? Nowadays, the delivery of the product is no longer the end of the deal. After customers have installed an intelligent device like our double seat valve in their plant, they can easily connect it to the Internet of Things via plug and play. The digital twin enables a device to register with all systems. Both individual components and the entire plant can continuously be monitored via the digital twin. Besides the advantages of predictive maintenance, machine learning can be used to constantly optimize the maintenance strategy and reduce downtimes and costs. The digital twin always shows the current status of its physical counterpart, even down to individual components. Maintenance and repair services can be fully automated. The system generates a service ticket and sends an order to the responsible technician. An app guides the technician to the device and helps to replace the right components in the right order with augmented reality support. Designed to operate is not a linear process. The data collected during operation is the starting point for continuous product improvement. Such an end-to-end process enables completely new business models and is a real competitive advantage.
Okay, let me just go back to here. Okay, we're good. You can see my screen again.
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. So if you think of it, if we have sensors attached to our intelligent equipment, whether that's in the manufacturing context or any other context, those sensors can continually feed back information. They can feed it back into a digital twin of the asset. And that helps us to understand things like, is the equipment overheating? Has something failed in the equipment? And do we need to be able to provide maintenance immediately in order to make sure that that line is not stopped? What is the energy usage of the equipment? Is there effects from other areas like high humidity, high temperatures that are changing the dynamics of how this particular asset is working? But all of this information from these sensors in IoT can be fed back and captured alongside the asset information, alongside the asset strategy and the planning, and impacting the master asset data so that we're able to monitor all of this and keep it working in many different ways. Now, when we do the Empowered People session later next week, you'll hear about even sensors that are being equipped now in, for example, the helmets of a worker. Sensors to identify, is the worker under stress? Is the worker going to be affected by something in the area where they're working, so that we're able to monitor that? We have examples when I talk about the customers at the moment where we're using noise analysis to be able to predict whether or not a line is going to stop. We have examples in the FMCG space where our customers are using the ability to monitor drivers who are driving goods from one location to another over long distances to identify whether or not the driver is falling asleep and to be able to take retrospective action in that regard. So these sensors and this capability of building intelligence into the equipment and the people who are operating it is something that is definitely a core part of our intelligent asset management strategy and helping us to drive much better asset performance management capability. I also talked about edge computing earlier. And when we think about computing at the edge, it's important to understand exactly what we mean. So we're talking about processing, storing, and analyzing this sensor data anyway, but in edge computing, being able to do it closer to the source of the data. Typically, we all operate in a world where we have a reasonably reliable internet, but at remote locations, for example, that may not necessarily be the case. And we want to be able to do this analysis of the data at that source, but also help to drive better decision, faster decision-making in relation to the operations of the equipment. And especially if there is any intermittent connectivity issues in the cloud, we need to be able to do that at the edge. And the edge helps us to become much more autonomous. These systems that are people-less, systems that are able to operate based on their own intelligence and send triggers through AI and ML models. Now, if we think of the edge, let's think of an example of how that would work. So in effect, what we're doing is we're bringing a new value proposition. We're bringing business applications to the edge. This is where we're seeing effectively the ability to orchestrate a life cycle of containerized services and drive those centrally from the cloud, being able to support diverse environments, being able to push edge devices with limited compute and storage capabilities to be able to do much smaller containerized tasks, to be able to run close to the source of the data, as I mentioned, and to be able to help to drive different information that's much more meaningful in terms of insights, and also have high flexibility and robustness built into that. Let's have a look at an example here where remote operations and field service, for example, can be enabled at the edge. If we think of equipment that is sending sensor information, that effectively allows us, as soon as something goes wrong, to be able to trigger information to ensure that, number one, the employees are safe, to capture information relating to the asset downtime, and also push that out so that we're able to drive the right person at the right time to fix that. Being able to leverage new equipment like drones or cobots or robots to do this as well, and also connect that and integrate that with the ERP system is important. Now, normally when I talk about this, people say, but Malachy, the performance of the network is really going to affect these strategies. And it is true, right? We have come to a world today where I'm doing this webinar, for example, from my home, and I need to have reasonably reliable and very always up comms, right? But we are seeing at the edge that this is also something that is becoming a bit of a challenge. Traditional 4G and traditional Wi-Fi are there and are working. But with the advent of 5G, we're seeing that we're hopefully going to be able to drive to a much more low latency, high bandwidth solution portfolio. And we're seeing organizations and working with organizations in the 5G Council, for example, we are driving a private and a public 5G capability. And if we bring 5G back into that story and we look at, for example, a connected construction site, we have the ability with the SAP Business Technology Platform and 5G at the edge to be able to make sure that we've got full integration and information about the materials, about the different autonomous vehicles and how they're working and are connected, being able to have real-time visibility through AR, VR, and also real-time access to data, being able to monitor the health and safety of the location, but also of the individual at that location, being able to drive much better and much smarter workforce management. So these are all areas that we're seeing coming to life with 5G at the edge, with edge computing, and with connected intelligence. Now, I want to cover some customer stories next before I wrap up. I think I'm doing okay on time. So there are quite a few customer stories here, but I think it is important because they all are across different industries and they're all leveraging different aspects of our intelligent asset management portfolio. The first example here is that one I was talking about, where we are listening to the equipment that's being used and analyzing the noise coming from that equipment. So we have a customer in Europe in the automotive industry, and effectively on their assembly line, they are leveraging IoT and our predictive insights capability to monitor those assets. So they're monitoring the sound of the asset. And if they also monitor the temperature of the asset, the vibrations of the asset through computer listening, they're able to identify when an anomaly occurs. We have trained AI ML models that then are analyzing this information, and they're identifying whether or not this is possibly going to cause a line stop. They're gathering and filtering the data through these trained models. They're able to predict whether or not there's going to be failure. And if they predict something that might cause an issue, they're able to actually alert employees, the right employees, to come with this information in order to prevent downtime on the line. The employees, of course, will have all the asset information to hand, and they're able to make better inspection and fixes at the point of work in order to drive much better business outcomes. This particular customer has seen a significant cost in terms of avoiding equipment breakdown and downtime. And in the examples that we were looking at here, they managed to reduce the number of line stops from 4 to 0 after implementation. So that's a good example of where the assets are in effect telling the systems through sensors that there's something possibly going wrong through noise analysis or temperature or vibration analysis, and therefore alerting the right person at the right time with the right information in order to avoid downtime. Another example we have is with SBB, our rail company in Switzerland. So I'm going to play another video. So Mukesh, keep me safe here in terms of whether or not you can hear and or see what I'm about to play.
How do you
Works
make
fine, Malaki.
traffic ready for the future? SBB is one of the largest transportation service providers in Switzerland, with more than 100 years of history. SBB anticipates a steady increase in demand for passenger services. To run its fleet more efficiently, SBB is investing in reliability-centered maintenance. SBB uses SAP Asset Intelligence Network to communicate with its suppliers more easily. SAP Asset Strategy and Performance Management supports the implementation of its reliability-centered maintenance strategy. And SAP Predictive Asset Insights integrates data taken directly from trains' onboard monitoring systems. By integrating these solutions from SAP, SBB brings together different capabilities to reshape asset management. SAP Intelligent Asset Management Solutions help SBB to optimize every second that a train is in the workshop, just like a Formula One pit stop. By integrating real-time onboard and trackside monitoring data with parts inventory data, SBB can speed up the maintenance process and maximize efficiency. Intelligent asset management tools from SAP help SBB to achieve operational excellence for the future. Find out how to reshape your asset management efficiency.
Okay, back to the deck. 1 second. Okay, so in terms of SBB, right, you saw there that they are leveraging key tools like our predictive asset capability, the asset strategy and performance management, and the intelligence network. These are all part of our overall asset performance management solution portfolio that I talked about earlier. And we've recently launched a new upgrade to that portfolio. So in effect, what they're doing is they're taking the information, they're monitoring all their fleet, they're monitoring from the track lines, at the equipment locations, at the service locations, and the inspection and maintenance facilities. And they're able to actually get operational insights about their trains. They're able to get real-time, both onboard and trackside information in order to be able to help and optimize their maintenance processes, and to be able to leverage that real-time data in a way that helps them to drive much better condition-based maintenance and much better predictive maintenance. So this is a really good example of how our intelligent asset management portfolio is coming together in this industry. Another company, and I talked about IoT and I talked about IoT at the edge. This is another example of a company that is leveraging Industry 4.0 to take the IoT edge capabilities that we have in order to provide much better predictive analytics and ensure better efficiency and quality on the production line. In this case, they are using production parameters such as temperature, what is the weight of the raw materials, and they're monitoring this across all their different machines. So in effect, they're planning to leverage this data and to use computer vision at a later point to monitor the production and the actual goods that are being placed on the belts. We have another customer in the States who's already looking at computer vision to be able to identify food or packaging or items on the belt that are out of sync. So this particular customer is also looking at how they can monitor, analyze that data, drive manual tasks out of the equation, and leverage AI and ML models to be able to provide much better containerized service capabilities at the edge. It's bringing together data all in one single platform, allowing limited traffic in the cloud and much more at the location at the edge capabilities. And it's therefore helping them to increase efficiency across their production line and also manage the amount of raw material that's being used in order to improve product quality. And this, as you could imagine, has a great sustainability outcome for them as well. Another company that's leveraging our edge services is doing so to increase and improve their packaging manufacturing. So this is a company where it's capturing data from the packaging machines, and they're looking at condition-based maintenance associated with that. They're monitoring the operations. They're able to detect anomalies and trigger alarms that therefore prevent downtime. And this particular company is looking to be able to deliver easy and fast integration across all their machines. They are able to take control room information, place it in dashboards, and make sure that everyone is aware of the complete end-to-end cycle. And they're leveraging, as I said, IoT-based insights to be able to combine business context and deploy much better shop floor capabilities within their organization. A few more examples then as we go through. There's a slightly different format here, but I think they're a little bit more pointed in terms of what they're trying to say. We have an example here again in automotive. And this particular company is leveraging intelligent asset management and Industry 4.0 in order to provide improved customer experience, to manage the predictive maintenance scenarios that we've been talking about, and also share analytics with their manufacturers, with operators, and with service providers. We have a quote here from the head of strategic alliances who said, "Our customers depend on us to provide them with ever more intelligent robotics and software solutions, and SAP's intelligent asset network is helping them to leverage Industry 4 across all of their companies around the world." Another company in the IM&C space is looking at increased visibility of their asset components. They're able to leverage digital twin capability to be able to provide new services to their customers and be able to provide full transparency. And transparency, as you know, is really important when we get into that sustainability discussion that we've been talking about earlier. In the steel industry, we have a company that has been able to trim their maintenance costs significantly by leveraging the asset information, asset intelligence, and the full asset performance capability to significantly change the synergy between both their existing but also their planned system landscape. So they currently have 23,000 assets that are in the scope within a plant, and they are really looking and have already seen significant improvements in their maintenance costs. If we look at another company, similarly in the asset intelligence space, they are looking at how they've leveraged IoT with SAP to provide faster response to service calls, much more predictive maintenance, condition monitoring, and augmented reality is now being included into their solution portfolio as well. They're using the SAP Asset Intelligence Network, our cloud platform, our ERP application, and also Service Cloud and all of our SAP Analytics Cloud solutions to help them to drive a full transformation within their organization. They have fully transformed to an intelligent IoT-driven enterprise, and they are finding that this is very beneficial when it comes to handling their customer service. Another one in terms of predictive IoT insights in the manufacturing and energy space is a company that is building out plant maintenance and premium maintenance services for their customers. they've been able to adapt a new business model around these premium-based services. And they really have leveraged the technology, being able to take people skills and build that with their partner ecosystem in order to define a much better way of managing their equipment maintenance. They've seen a drop of 5 to 8% already, and also removing paper completely from the quality control system. And in the mining arena, we have a large mine in Australia where they are seeing a 25% increase in efficiency as a result of digitizing their processes. They are using SAP's asset manager capability in the hands of their field workers to capture really important insights, to make sure that jobs are kept up to date at full time, to be able to identify the cost of doing those jobs, and being able to make sure that they're able to create and schedule the right workforce at the right time to provide better service and make sure that the equipment is available and fully up to date in terms of maintenance planning. So just before I finish talking, I want to play one last video. And this one is really talking about where we see that big S word I was talking about earlier, sustainability, coming in and adjusting our outputs and our capabilities around the full digital supply chain and design to operate.
A single computer chip grinds car deliveries down by 90%. Lumber prices are 4 times what they normally are because of uncontrollable shortages. Scarcity of healthy drivers results in empty grocery shelves. The list is endless. Extreme market shifts and unpredictable volatility have taught us a valuable lesson. Your supply chain is what defines your success or failure. A modern digital supply chain shares the mountains of real-time data you collect across every integrated part of your manufacturing operation. Products can be designed based on real-time customer feedback. Planners can specify only available components. Manufacturing can be customized at scale. Logistics are optimized for flawless delivery. And predictive maintenance can help you achieve 0 downtime. But probably the most valuable thing a modern supply chain can give you is resiliency. The flexibility to adapt to anything that's thrown at you, from anywhere in your supply chain, so that ultimately you can build any product, anywhere, at any time. What if you had the flexibility to adapt to the most unimaginable scenarios through a living, real-time supply chain that is the epicenter of your entire business? You'd instantly become more agile, productive, connected, and sustainable. Technology is at a tipping point that will define the next generation of supply chain leaders. It's time to modernize or become fossilized.
So I hope I've given you an idea of how SAP is connecting the intelligent assets to drive an intelligent and sustainable enterprise. Every single aspect of what we're involved in is touching every single aspect of the value life cycle, of the asset life cycle. And our solutions are helping to make data available at the point of operation, at the right time, and in an intelligent fashion, which is making sure that we can deliver a full, intelligent, and sustainable enterprise to all of our customers. So thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much for listening. Hopefully, we'll get a chance now to have some questions and answers. Over to you, Mukesh.
Thank you so much, Malaki, for taking us through the presentation. I would now, since we have a small cohort right now, I would rather, I had originally planned to split everyone into smaller rooms so that we can have a round of discussion and then come back and have that conversation. But since we don't have that many people, we are only about 12-13 people in the call. Maybe we skip that part of going into different rooms and maybe have a conversation here in this room itself. So, any questions, thoughts, or comments based on whatever you just heard from Malaki?
If there were any issues, we would work to resolve.
So let me rephrase my question. So out of the 5 or 6 examples that Malaki showed as part of the last set of content that he shared, is there any specific example that resonated with you? Or would you like to understand a bit deeper? Guys, this is something that you can unmute yourself and maybe, we can have a conversation around.
I mean, I think it's helpful. It's a really good.
Vipin, is there something that you would like to add to the conversation as well?
Yes, Mukesh. So I'm just putting it on message. Yeah.
Okay.
A couple of questions for Malaki. Shall I ask them here or?
Yeah. Please go ahead and ask.
Shall I put it on?
Yeah. Please ask us.
So Malaki, we have been talking about the Industry 4.0, the IoT, bringing in a revolution to help us prepare for that a situation which is probably not sort of understood earlier or not envisaged earlier. How can an industry get a value out of this from the maintenance perspective? Meaning, how do I probably increase my operative time and reduce my shutdown or the non-productive time? How does Industry 4.0 possibly help me? And are there any examples of a real value coming out of it in dollar cent terms or in man-hour saved terms, etc., or productivity increase, whatever might be the measure?
Yeah, it's a good question, right? I think we always talk about these things and people are like, really, So, but I think if you think of the different areas I covered, right? I talked about the capabilities to be able to predict asset failure and prevent asset failure. And if you look at some of those examples from the customers that I was talking about, right? The one in automotive where they've been able to reduce line stops from 4 to 0. What that naturally meant was that the expense of having the equipment break down, of having to go and pause their entire production operation, as a result of that, they've been able to remove that expense. Now, we have got examples, and I can share them with the audience afterwards of the actual, as you mentioned, dollars and cents or time and hours. But saving in time and saving the use of people naturally lends itself to reducing the dollars and cents associated with maintenance, right? So we are seeing with all of the technologies, first, you invest in the sensors. The sensors talk, the equipment feeds to the twin. And by having that information, you're able to actually not necessarily have to go out and always check that equipment on a frequent plant maintenance basis, but only have to check it on an ad hoc basis, or check it when the equipment is telling you that it is failing or about to fail. So these are just some of the examples, and anything that prevents unnecessary working, therefore prevents unnecessary downtime. We look back to, I think it was last year, the Suez Canal crisis, where a tanker got stuck in the Suez Canal. We were able to help those organizations with that intelligent data coming from the assets to be able to cut down and have a much more predictive outcome, being able to plan what would happen if they did ABC, and being able to use digital twinning to be able to actually get that tanker moved more quickly. And as everybody knows, the massive impact that had on the global supply chain. So I think I can dig out, if you want, I'll dig out some examples and send them through to anybody who wants. But anything where we're able to prevent unnecessary working and unnecessary equipment downtime, which is really what this is all about in terms of understanding and getting feedback from the assets, that's where we're seeing the money savings and the time savings.
Thanks, Malaki. I have another question if you have the time to take it.
Of course.
So the other side of the spectrum. So right now we were talking about the machines that are operating already. The other side of the spectrum is machines that are not operating, they are idle. So as the global CIO for Wellspun in my earlier life, I was faced with a situation where there are forklifts, especially was a use case. There are forklifts lying in various warehouses spread over a campus. And while one of the warehouses is struggling to meet the demand because there are fewer forklifts than they need, while there is another another warehouse that's about 400-500 meters away, which has excess capacity of those forklifts. And this earlier warehouse would sort of either rent or ask for a capex to be done. How can we possibly bridge this demand using some of these IoT capabilities? Is that a possibility that when I need it, I see it on the screen, and then I can take that action to meet that demand?
Yeah, well, again, another good question, and another very common problem that we're seeing. You quote the example of forklifts, but of course, material availability or equipment availability is something that is definitely a big issue. So you said an important point as you close, which is, would I be able to see it on the screen? And seeing things, that visibility is really what we're trying to get to here. By having all of this equipment tagged in such a way that we're able to capture information, we can capture information about its location, about when it's been used, if it's being used, etc. And we can also feed that not just into that particular site, but into a global view. And a global view or a regional view allows you to see equipment availability across many and varied locations. We saw this, for example, even in the context of pandemic vaccines, right? Where were the vaccines? Were they available? Could they be transported? What was the logistics required for that? And all of that is similar to what you're talking about. Is there idle equipment that I can leverage without the need to actually invest in the site I'm in, but actually get it from another location? But that, of course, then brings the context of, is it logistically okay to take that equipment from point A to point B? Is it going to be able to be used? Is it in a good operational state because it's been lying idle? And all of that visibility of information, all of what I call data, becomes intelligent insights whenever we're able to associate sensors with that, capture information about it, and store that information in such a way we can use analytics to make it visible, to be able to see it, as you say, across a dashboard, see where my equipment is, and to be able to include that as material availability.
Great. Thanks a ton, Malaki. That brings in some amount of insights on how we can handle this kind of a situation.
So there is a question on the chat that has come to me, and this is something that pops up every single time when we are talking about IoT or Industry 4.0. The question is, will one partner, for example, will SAP be able to provide all the software necessary for a particular customer to go and implement Industry 4.0 strategy? And maybe I would extend the question to say that it is not just software; it is also a combination of software, hardware, and a set of implementation experiences that is required. So how has SAP either partnered with other vendors and providers to enable customers to kind of drive end-to-end implementation of Industry 4.0 strategy?
Yeah, well, it's a very important point, Mukesh, and I think the one thing that underpins everything we do at SAP is our ecosystem and its capability. You mentioned the fact that at SAP, for example, we're a software vendor. We're not a hardware vendor. We are a services and a solution provider, but we don't provide the kit, as it were, that helps to do that. But we have, as I'm sure everyone's aware, many and varied ecosystem partnerships, all the way through from the hyperscaler cloud partnerships to the equipment manufacturing partnerships. We've got partnerships with people like HCL, Bosch Restaurant, etc., in terms of sensor production. and being able to make those available. We also have partnerships with startups. I ran an event a few weeks ago where I had Tag and Track, one of our SAP.io startups, on the panel. And Tag and Track allows us to make sure that smart tags can be associated with the equipment. In their particular example, the smart tag is able to monitor the temperature of the box that it is attached to. And that information is able to be pushed up and made available through the network and fed into the SAP analytics engine so that we're able to monitor that actual item in terms of not just where it is and what it is, but also the temperature of the item. So it is really important that the ecosystem and SAP's collaborative business networks are really important in that regard. In terms of implementing, that's obviously another challenge. We have the ability to understand the industries, understand the solutions and the technologies, but SAP's capability with its own services team to do that is one thing, but also we have delivery partners, we have SIs, we have other partners who are able to help us in terms of delivering specific aspects of our solution. Everything we talked about is either available through our partnerships from a service delivery point of view, from an equipment delivery point of view, and also from a software delivery point of view to enhance and make available the types of solutions that we have.
Thanks, Malaki. In addition, maybe if I can also add my 2 cents, which is that even the applications of the software that SAP provides, they are now built in a way that allow you to either consume them in and integrate them with other third-party applications that you might want to use to make sure that the solution is complete. And that modular approach that SAP has in terms of being able to connect to whatever applications that you need to, both at a software level as well as at a hardware level, makes these compelling enough to be considered. I remember, Malaki, there was this post somewhere that I read that in Norway there was this bridge which was actually sending signals saying that it is no longer safe to be put into use because they had a digital twin capability that was enabled by the organization that was supposed to maintain it. Would you, by any chance, I know I'm putting you in a spot a little bit here, but if you know the case study, I think it will be a brilliant case study to talk about, simply because of the fact that having these IoT sensors in the bridge and having a digital twin of those sensors in application actually ended up saving lives. And I don't think there can be a bigger ROI than that, in my opinion. So if you know, maybe you can share a little bit about that. But otherwise, I'll try and find the case study and kind of share that with.
I have heard of it. I don't know the detail behind it, Mukesh, and I have heard of it. But if I pick another example of safety, I mentioned earlier, for example, the fact that we are putting sensors into vehicles, and these are vehicles that are being used by delivery companies, and it's able to monitor whether or not the driver is awake, whether or not they are drowsy, whether or not it can monitor the pattern of the driver in terms of speeding up, slowing down, et cetera, erratic driving. And that example and our partnership with that company, it was all done through one of our big partners in Japan. And that was the direct outcome of there having been an incident in Japan where a school bus had crashed, unfortunately, killing the driver and 14 students. And all because it was traced later that the driver was actually very tired and had overworked a shift, etc. So I think there are lots of those examples out there. There are examples of that almost just in time. It would have been great if that company had been able to monitor and identify that the driver was drowsy and therefore avoid that accident. And like the example from Norway, the ability to be able to predict potential failure and to be able to therefore stop something passing over that bridge and make sure that it gets fixed before the incident happens. Without a doubt, that is a major benefit of these solutions. But we'll dig out the example and I see you pushing it through there in the chat. But I mean, at the end of the day, these are the real examples of what we're talking about, is making sure that you are able to almost foresee where there might be an issue, whether that's downtime of a line in a production site, whether that's, you know, the potential for someone who may cause an accident, or whether that's a breach about to fall down, or whether that's monitoring the goods that are going into the food chain and being able to make sure that nothing bad is going in. We've another example of being able to actually determine the particles in the atmosphere by you know, we have an example in our Singapore Experience Center of a machine that is able to determine the types of particles in the atmosphere, and based on that, able to, for example, identify whether or not there is a gas in the air that shouldn't be there, and be able to trigger alerts. The key thing for me here is that all of this is about having the right ability to capture the data, to store the data, and to analyze the data, and that's where our full portfolio of solutions coming together with our partners' extension solutions is really driving better outcomes.
Very well said. I remember Venkatesh Natarajan was at one point in time, I don't know whether he's still, but at one of Indus conferences, he shared the story of how Ashok Leyland actually was able to you know, leverage IoT to create new business models. Instead of selling trucks, they were able to sell mileage, and it created a new business model for the organization based on sensor data coming in from some of the sensors that they put in.
Yeah,
I also,
if you think of this, sorry, Mukesh, to cut across, if you think of this sustainability examples, right? There are companies out there. We're working with some of the large manufacturers in the FMCG space, and they're using equipment, you know, like, for example, take equipment that's in our home, like air conditioning, like washing machine, etc., like a vacuum cleaner, and they're able to equip that equipment with sensors and push data back as to the usage of that equipment, and therefore offer different models. I know certain large suppliers in the world are offering the as a service model now, and this is making this very sustainable. So if you don't own the equipment, but you're in effect renting the equipment in an as a service model, then the company that made that equipment is able to actually monitor the parts, and they're able to track how they'll be able to bring that equipment back, disassemble it, and use those parts in a much more sustainable, circular fashion. So all of this asset intelligence, capturing the asset intelligence information, tracking that information, either from a preventative or from a circular or sustainable nature, is really important.
yeah, well said. I think one of the things that we tend to miss out on, especially when we are so enamored by the technology that is around us, is the importance of human imagination and creativity. Ultimately, all these use cases, ultimately, you know, the value that you can derive from all of these technologies also depends a lot on your understanding of the business itself, and where does the business actually drive value for its customers. And if you're able to imagine better ways of driving the same value, the chances of deploying some of these technologies to a much more significant how do I put it, impact is that much more than anything else. And at times, as busy executives and always surrounded by technology, we tend to forget the importance of the imagination and the creativity from that point of view. So I think that's something that I wanted to definitely bring in.
I think you have to differentiate between creativity and innovation as well, you know, because some people are creative and some people are innovative. And if you can manage to get those people all in a room together, you tend to get that to work. And we obviously have creative and innovative people within SAP, but another part of our approach is to bring in people from other organizations. That's where our partnerships make a lot of difference. People who are effectively bringing in understanding of different industries, understanding of different aspects and the importance of those, and being able to come in and help to design our products and our capabilities better. And that's certainly, if you look at the products we've delivered from a sustainability point of view, product footprint management, responsible design and production, those types of products are helping us to make sure that we're designing into the asset the sustainability from the very start.
Cool. I mean, I don't want to be the only person asking questions. So if anyone else has any questions, please do unmute yourself and ask your question now. Or you can put it on the chat and I can ask the question on your behalf. I mean, I can go all the way along and yes, please go on.
No, this is Vipin here. Malaki touched upon a very pertinent and in the moment kind of a activity that is happening globally, and that is sustainability. How, in your view, can this IoT piece or the Industry 4.0 piece help us not just measure sustainability, but to make a direct impact on, say, the green gases or whatever? What's your view on that?
Again, thanks for that. It is yet again another great question and a very current question, as it were. I think there are several aspects to that. Okay, so every day, again, just like the question earlier about, how do I save money? How do I save time? How do I avoid unnecessary work? These are all issues that are enabled by IoT, by intelligent assets, and by our overall asset performance management capabilities, etc. But actually think about, how do I avoid unnecessary travel? How do I make sure that I'm aware of the exact raw materials I'm using? How do I monitor the materials that are being used and what their product footprint is? How do I reduce my product footprint and adjust that design of my product accordingly? So by having all the information available and being able to analyze those insights, we're definitely able to affect that sustainability target, right? That example I gave just now around, circular economy, being able to monitor an asset and actually track the asset all the way through from its inception to not what we call end of life anymore, but to its repurposing within my organization is very important. And therefore, having a full and complete asset maintenance history, understanding how many miles the asset's done, how much energy it's consuming, etc. All of these are in effect lending themselves to that carbon data pattern, as it were, that we're able to analyze. And if we think of it along the lines of being able to actually monitor the energy that's being produced, the water that's being used, all of these are inputs to the assets that we are able to tag and monitor through the Industry 4.0 capability. And Industry 4.0 also covers other areas like, emerging technologies like blockchain and those capabilities. And we now have blockchain, I'm sure people are aware, embedded into our token capability for companies that are going to have to do a reporting of their carbon data footprint. We're able to provide smart contracts embedded into the solutions. So, and also we're able to, look with our responsible design and production, we're able to design in sustainability from the very start. Our RDP product is really helping our digital supply chain customers to identify the use of single-use plastics and actually design them out of the equation. And in Europe, for example, where they've introduced plastic taxes, this is something that's really important for them. And as we see that develop throughout the rest of the world, there will be an important need for our customers here to monitor their carbon footprint, but also the scope 3 emissions that are coming from their supplier network. So we're able to keep an eye on all of that interesting information as well. So I think we have the chance to touch everything.
So Malaki, what you're saying is we can actually see the before-after situation and see how much impact we have made.
Correct.
That,
yeah,
that is really motivating.
The equipment I showed earlier with the temperature monitors and the energy monitors, and you could extend that and you can monitor water usage, you can monitor the full outputs of the raw materials, of the products, and then track those all the way back into the system again.
Thanks, Malaki, for that insight. Continuing with the sustainability piece, normally people think of sustainability as how much carbon footprint I am producing, but you also brought in the maintenance aspect of it. Is there some way we will be able to, maybe not now, maybe in the future, or somehow, get to the details of every single piece of impact that we are making on the environment? Meaning, and you just spoke about the network as well, right? So while I am controlling or monitoring what is happening within my manufacturing facility or my business, but I should also be able to look at how am I impacting the other aspects of the network that I'm working in. For an example, my executives flying out to certain locations, what is the carbon footprint there? And how do I then reduce that? Is that something that we can bring in a before after kind of a situation?
Yeah, well, I mean, we can monitor all those aspects already today, right? SAP's Sustainability Control Tower, for example, allows us to monitor anything and everything that touches the green line, okay? So we're able to bring in all of that information. But I think the important aspect here is depending on the industry you're in, okay? If we take something like retail or FMCG, like I talked about, our customers will want to be able to purchase sustainable products. They'll want to be able to see that visibility and transparency of the full digital supply chain of the product when they pick it up or before they buy it, all right? So that's information that will need to be available at the point of consumption by the consumer, right? When products are being end of life, we'll need to have different ways to accommodate the demand and the forecast. How do we know that a product is going to safely go to end of life? Is it going to landfill, which is causing sustainable impact? Or can we strip it down? And that brings it back to the design, building it in from the start, componentized design of a product so that we're able to use all the components as a product, but all the pieces in order to be able to feed into our forecasting and demand life cycle. Then the people. Who are the people that are being touched by the process? What, as you mentioned, is their environmental footprint? We at SAP are very proud of the fact that our people are driving a zero emissions strategy for us, and we hope to be very much ahead of our targets on that. And then if you look at our other aspects of zero emissions and zero waste, but also zero inequality, being able to monitor all of the touch points. Who are the suppliers? Are those suppliers being treated fairly? Are we using materials and goods in the manufacture of our assets that are coming from locations where we have to be able to monitor who's involved in the production of this product? So these are all areas that will be trackable as we extend our capabilities and introduce more and more product capabilities into our solutions. We'll be able to track all of this information in the realness.
Thanks, Malaki.
Any questions from any of the participants around whatever you heard, or if there is a particular situation, or if there is an IoT project that you're running in your organization and you would like to share what you're doing, maybe this is also a good platform for you to share, and let's see what others have to say or ask about that. Anyone? You can either raise your hand or unmute yourself and speak. While we wait, Malaki, one last question from my end. I know I've been asking a lot of questions, but one last question from my side, at least. Out of all the different projects that you've been involved in, or you've seen, or you've read about, or you've seen someone go through, specifically from an intelligent assets perspective, what is one project that you think stands out for you? I mean, it's a subjective assessment, and if you can share why. What was the project and why does it stand out for you?
Wow, it's quite a lot of projects, Mukesh. So I think, look, I sometimes get excited by just the simple things, I like technology a lot. I like the fact that we've got the capability now for people who are remote from an asset to be able to be guided. I remember an example many moons ago when I was working in the UK. There was an oil and gas company, and the oil and gas company had a failure on a remote oil rig that happened on Christmas Eve, I believe it was, and they had to send an engineer to the location in order to help fix the asset. Number one, identify what was wrong with the asset. Number two, fix it. And they, I think at the time, the ranking was that they were losing like $1 million an hour in terms of production losses from that oil and gas plant, right? And that was notwithstanding the fact that they'd had to invest a fortune to fly that very experienced engineer to the location, put them up for the length of time and actually fix the asset, right? When it was all tracked back, it was one little widget that was missing. And that widget wasn't available in stock because nobody knew that it had been used up, et cetera, et cetera. So today, I was on a call this week where our partner TeamViewer was presenting Remote Assist. And Remote Assist, as I mentioned, during the pandemic, there has been this problem where people, number one, people couldn't go to site. Never mind the fact that engineers, experienced special engineers, would have had to be flown to site to work on equipment. With the TeamViewer capability now integrated to our intelligent asset and service management solutions, both our field service management solution and our asset management solution, we are able to actually put in a wearable headset that responds to both voice and vision. We're able to put guidance that allows the engineer, whilst working on the equipment, to scan the equipment, to be popped up with the instructions about the equipment, to pull out a three-dimensional view of the equipment and work on it and tweak it, the digital twin in their hand, as it were. But also, and quoting back to that example I mentioned earlier, if they have any problems and they need the experienced engineer, they launch up a Teams call on the device. And the Remote Assist gets the experienced engineer. They can choose them from a list. They know their skills, and they're able to bring that individual into a Teams call, show them through their vision goggles the actual issue, and be walked through how to fix it. And that, to me, is a very exciting use of technology, and it's an exciting use of a technology that's fully available today through SAP and our partners, helping us with our full intelligent asset management portfolio.
Cool. I think we are on top of the hour now of the time that we had for today. I would like to leave everyone with a very simple question to ponder over. The question is the following: how much does it cost for one of your most expensive asset to be stalled and not being in productive use for 24 hours? Think about it, and then think about how much does it cost for you to be able to predict and stop that equipment from getting into that situation every single time. And you will find that the technology that you deploy in order for you to predict and maintain and continuously be use of the asset is way less when it compared to the losses that your organization might face if you actually end up not using the asset for 24 hours. Just think about it. And again, as I said, creativity and imagination are critical. Think through in terms of how can you drive value from deploying technology, and not just use technology for the sake of technology. With that, I will conclude today's session. And just a reminder, the third session or the third webinar in this series will be on the 2nd of June. I hope to see you all on the 2nd of June as well. Meanwhile, the session is recorded. You can find it on LinkedIn. You can find it on the Indus YouTube channel. I'm putting together this as a playlist on the Indus YouTube channel, so that at any point in time you want, you can just directly go to the YouTube channel and search for Industry 4.Now playlist, and there you will find all the 5 sessions as they come along. So with that, thank you so much, Malaki, for your time and insights. Thanks everyone for joining in today.
Thank you.
And see you guys on 2nd of June. Have a great day.
Take care, everybody. Ciao. Bye.
Bye.